Story 1. My crazy job success story. I've been meaning to share this story for a while because it's a testament to persistence and belief, even when everything around you seems to be falling apart. If you've ever felt like the 3D world was mocking your dreams, let this be your reminder to keep going. Back in 2020, I was fresh out of grad school, 22 years old, full of hope, and ready to take on the world. Teaching wasn't just a job to me. It was my dream, my calling. I had a very niche teaching license, though. My subject wasn't one of the big ones like math, English, or science. It was something a bit offbeat. And let me tell you, the job market wasn't kind to dreamers like me. Everyone, from my professors to well-meaning friends, kept telling me the same thing. It's going to be impossible to find a teaching job in your state, especially with your license. But I didn't listen. Why? Because I had discovered Neville Goddard and the law of assumption. I believed that if I assumed my dream job was mine, it would be mine. And then, like magic, the perfect job appeared. This wasn't just any job, it was the job. A school with incredible pay, a strong union, and values that aligned perfectly with mine. It felt like it was made for me. There was only one problem. Everyone in my grad program wanted it too. Oh, and the school? They didn't hire first-year teachers. But I was undeterred. I started affirming, I work at school name every chance I got. I visualized myself in the classroom, meeting my students, and feeling the joy of doing what I loved. When I got an interview, I felt like I was on top of the world. The day of the interview, though, things didn't go as planned. It felt strange, awkward, even. I left the room with a sinking feeling, but I kept telling myself, feelings don't matter. The job is mine. A few days later, I received an email that made my heart race. It said, "Would you be interested in this job?" Naturally, I assumed this was a job offer. I celebrated, called my friends, and let myself bask in the joy of making it. But then came the twist. It wasn't an offer. It was more of a maybe. To add insult to injury, my grad school nemesis, the person who always seemed to one-up me, had received the exact same email. I was crushed. But instead of letting it break me, I let it fire me up. I decided I wasn't giving up. The school asked me to reapply and go through another round of interviews. It was disheartening, but I saw it as another chance to prove myself. The second interview went much better, and I felt optimistic again. I kept affirming, I work at in the school name every single day. Then the email came. We regret to inform you. I was devastated. All that effort, all that hope, and nothing. I cried for a day, letting myself feel the disappointment fully. But then I decided to move on. I started looking into other jobs, even considering retail to make ends meet. I told myself, it's okay. Maybe this wasn't meant for me. 2 months later, out of nowhere, my phone rang. It was the principal of the school. "Have you found a job yet?" he asked. When I told him no, he said, "The person we hired had to leave. Are you still interested?" I couldn't believe it. Of course, I was interested. Everything I had affirmed, everything I had visualized, it was happening. Even when I thought it was over, the universe was working behind the scenes to bring me exactly what I wanted. But the story doesn't end there. When I started, I was part-time, teaching at 0.5 FTE, which is full-time equivalent. It was a step forward, but I wanted to be full-time. So I began affirming again, I am a full-time teacher. I imagined the steady paycheck, the full schedule, the sense of stability. The next school year, my FTE increased slightly to 0.663, not full-time, but progress. I didn't let it discourage me. I kept affirming, kept believing. Then something incredible happened. One of the other teachers, who had an FTE of 0.4, quit unexpectedly. The school posted the position, but after 2 months, not a single person applied. Finally, they called me into the office and said, "If you're willing to teach both your subject and theirs, we'll make you full-time." Without hesitation, I said yes. What makes this so wild is that at my school, It was almost unheard of for a teacher to teach a subject they weren't licensed in. I was the exception. The way everything aligned to make this happen still amazes me. Looking back, I didn't use advanced techniques like SATs. I relied on affirmations and the lullaby method, repeating affirmations while relaxed before bed. What this journey taught me is that persistence truly is everything. Even when it seems like nothing is working, even when rejection feels like the final word, keep going. The universe is always working in your favor, even when you can't see it.
Story 2. Manifest a dream job with affirmations. I hope this post finds you in a place of ease and trust that everything is working out for you. And if it doesn't feel that way right now, I hope this story motivates you to lean into affirmations or whatever tools resonate most with you to bring yourself back to that place of alignment. I want to share a success story that means a lot to me. One that I hope will inspire anyone feeling stuck in their 3D reality or doubting the power of the law of assumption. Success stories have always lifted my spirits and reminded me of what's possible, so I'm thrilled to contribute my own. For as long as I can remember, I've been fascinated by the idea that our thoughts shape our reality. Growing up, I was the kind of kid who believed the universe was always speaking to me. I used to tell my dad, "The universe is showing me signs all the time." What I didn't realize back then is that it wasn't some external force, it was me. As Neville Goddard teaches, there's only one I am, and that infinite awareness is within us all. This understanding has changed my life in ways I could have never imagined. Let me take you back a few years to one of my first big successes with manifestation. At the time, I decided to challenge myself by manifesting $7,000. 7 has always been my lucky number, and this goal felt exciting yet believable. I didn't overcomplicate the process. I affirmed that I had the money, visualized it sitting in my bank account, and allowed myself to feel the joy of receiving it. Then, something completely unexpected happened. My car caught on fire. Literally. I was babysitting, and when we walked outside, the car was engulfed in flames. It was one of those surreal moments where time slows down, and you can't believe what you're seeing. The fire was later attributed to an engine design flaw. Initially, I was devastated. I relied on that car for everything, and the thought of replacing it felt overwhelming. But then, things took an extraordinary turn. My insurance company issued me a check for exactly $7,700, more than enough to cover my original goal. Here's where it gets even better. I was preparing for a big cross-country move, and the family member I was going to live with had an extra hybrid car I could use. I didn't even need to spend insurance money on a replacement vehicle. That $7,700 became a beautiful reminder that the universe, or rather, my own consciousness, was always working behind the scenes to align everything perfectly for me. That experience was a turning point. It showed me that even when circumstances appear negative or chaotic, they're often just the bridge leading you to exactly what you want. Fast forward to a couple of months ago, and I decided to focus on manifesting a steady income increase. At the time, I was earning $3,500 a month. While it was enough to get by, I wanted to expand and grow. I set my sights on $5,000 a month, a number that felt realistic yet exciting. I kept it simple. My main technique was robotic affirming. I make $5,000 a month. I repeated it throughout the day, sometimes out loud, sometimes in my head. When I had a quiet moment, I would imagine how it would feel to live that reality, to open my bank app and see the balance, to know that I was secure and thriving. Not even a week later, my manager approached me out of the blue. She said, "You're not being paid as much as you should be, and I want to advocate for a raise on your behalf." My jaw nearly dropped. She told me she'd push for an increase to $4,500 a month. With my part-time passion project bringing in extra income, this would put me right at my goal of $5,000 a month. I was floored by how quickly my affirmation seemed to take effect. But then, reality threw me a curveball. My boss denied the full raise, agreeing only to a $500 increase. I was disappointed and began to doubt whether manifestation really worked. Over the next couple of months, things started to shift. My manager quit, and the work environment became increasingly toxic. I realized I couldn't stay there any longer, no matter how uncertain the future seemed. I took a leap of faith and decided to quit without a backup plan. Before resigning, I wrote out a list of everything I wanted in my next job. It was a dream list: meaningful work, preferably nonprofit, a hardworking and kind team, remote flexibility, paid travel, and most importantly, a salary of at least $5,000 a month. The universe wasted no time. Just a week later, my sister sent me a job posting that checked every single box on my list, and more. The moment I saw it, I knew it was meant for me. Even the salary was exactly $5,000 a month, as if it had been placed there specifically to align with my affirmations. Although I didn't have extensive professional experience, I decided to apply. I went through 3 rounds of interviews, each one feeling smoother and more aligned than the last. I walked into every conversation with a quiet confidence, knowing that this position was already mine. And today, I officially signed the contract. But the story doesn't end there. Since manifesting this job, I've been so inspired by my own power that I've committed to maintaining a clean mental diet. One of my favorite affirmations has been, I am living in my dream reality. Whenever I catch myself drifting into worry or doubt, I gently redirect my thoughts back to gratitude and alignment. Here's a fun little bonus. While sitting in a cafe last week, I noticed a raffle for a free spa and skincare treatment. Already feeling lucky and aligned, I decided to enter. Sure enough, I won. During the treatment, the staff handed out affirmation cards saying, "We've pampered your body. Now let's nourish your mind." The card I picked read, "I'm courageous, and I stand up for myself. Know your worth, and don't allow others to make you feel any less." Their opinions are just that, opinions. That moment gave me chills. It was exactly the reminder I needed, reaffirming that I'm on the right path. This past year has been one of the hardest and most transformative of my life. But through it all, I've learned that our thoughts are unimaginably powerful. Even in the darkest moments, there's light waiting to emerge. If you're struggling right now, I hope this story serves as a reminder that you're more powerful than you know. Be patient, be kind to yourself, and remember that life is always working out in your favor, even when it doesn't seem like it. Next on my list, manifesting even bigger goals and diving into creative projects I've been dreaming about for years. From me to you, you've got this.
Story 3. Manifest a job after 6 months of rejections. I've been meaning to share my success story for a while, because reading stories like these helped me so much during my journey, especially when I felt lost and hopeless. My story will always be my personal favorite. Even with all its hardships, it taught me the most valuable life lessons, including one of Neville Goddard's core principles. Letting go is true detachment. There's no worry, fear, or obsession. You trust that it's yours because you know that it is. I hope my story brings hope to anyone feeling stuck or doubting their path. It's a great reminder that circumstances truly do not matter. I used to hear people say how important connections were for landing a good job, and honestly, I had none. Zero. But my journey proves that you don't need connections or anything external to succeed. You're always in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people at the right moment, even if it feels impossible at the time. In April last year, I left my job with no backup plan. Yep, no plan at all. I was working as a teaching assistant, a role I'd kind of stumbled into after finishing university with a psychology degree. I'm 24, based in the UK, and while I enjoyed the job for about 2 years, I eventually hit a wall. There was no room for growth, no recognition for my hard work, and no chance of a pay rise. I realized I wanted more. I knew I wanted my next job to be in marketing, ideally remote and creative. After quitting, I decided to travel. I spent time in Egypt, enjoying my freedom for a couple of months. I'm grateful I had savings and lived at home, which meant no major bills to worry about. For those 2 months, I didn't even think about what was next. I just embraced the joy of the moment. When I returned home, the post-travel glow wore off, and I knew it was time to figure out my next steps. I started small, going to the gym, taking walks in the park, and journaling about what I wanted in life. I knew I had to get clear on my vision. I dabbled in freelance marketing, creating a portfolio to showcase my experience with social media content creation. Looking back, I think I focused on this because the idea of job hunting felt overwhelming. Making the portfolio gave me a false sense of productivity, but it also taught me something important. I prefer stability over freelancing. I realized I wanted a steady job with structure, not the unpredictability of constantly seeking new clients. When I finally began applying for jobs, it hit me how challenging the process was. I didn't even know where to start. Adding to the anxiety, everyone on TikTok seemed to be complaining about how terrible the job market was. I cried a lot during this time, feeling a heaviness in my chest and asking God to ease my pain. Eventually, I revamped my CV to highlight my teaching and social media experience. I took a few online marketing courses to strengthen my skills and updated my LinkedIn. I sent out applications but heard nothing for months. Not even rejections, just radio silence. Feeling desperate, I reached out to recruitment agencies for help, but most dismissed me. I started to doubt myself even more, wondering if I'd ever find the right job. Then one day, I received a connection request on LinkedIn from a recruiter. Let's call her Mia. Something about her seemed kind, so I decided to message her and ask for help with my CV. To my surprise, she agreed. We had a long phone call where I shared my work experience, and she gave me incredible advice. You're being too humble. You need to brag more. She helped me craft a stronger CV, emphasizing my achievements and skills. Mia's guidance was a game changer. Soon after, she submitted my CV for a marketing role that matched my salary expectations. I got an interview. It was my first one after months of applying with no responses. Mia prepped me for the interview, but my nerves got the best of me, and I didn't get the job. I was devastated. After a few days of feeling sorry for myself, I picked myself up. Mia reassured me and continued to support me. We developed a wonderful friendship during this time. She went above and beyond, helping me apply for roles and boosting my confidence when I felt like giving up. I started building a routine to keep myself grounded. Every day, I'd save job listings, tweak my CV, and send out applications. I even created an Excel sheet to track my progress. To break up my week and earn some extra cash, I began nannying part-time. This helped me detach from obsessing over the job search. During this period, I immersed myself in Neville Goddard's teachings. I affirmed daily, did EFT tapping for self-esteem, and visualized my dream job. I also created a vision board with my ideal job conditions: remote work, nice people, creative tasks, and a good salary. These practices helped me feel like my dream was already fulfilled. One day, I came across a marketing job listing at a nonprofit. Let's call it Company A. It ticked all my boxes, including the salary. I applied without overthinking it, telling myself, the worst they can say is no. Shortly after, I noticed the hiring manager viewed my LinkedIn profile. I had a strong feeling we'd get along. A day later, I received an interview invite. The task they gave me was fun and aligned with the role, which made me even more excited. At the same time, another company, Company B, reached out for an interview. While their role was also appealing, the process felt disorganized, and I didn't feel as connected to the opportunity. I had my first interview with Company A, and the vibe was amazing. The hiring manager and COO were kind and reassuring, making the interview feel more like a conversation. Shortly after, they invited me for a second interview. Before that interview, Company B offered me a job. While I was grateful, my gut told me to hold out for Company A. I even told the hiring manager at Company A about the offer, which seemed to speed up their decision. 15 minutes after my second interview with Company A, the hiring manager called to offer me the job. I was overjoyed. It was everything I had been dreaming of and more. 6 months later, I'm still thriving in this role. My manager is an incredible leader, and the team is everything I hoped for. Looking back, I realize every rejection and delay was just redirection to something better. This journey taught me the importance of a strong self-concept. Your internal world really does shape your external reality. Letting go was also key. Things started moving when I stopped trying to control everything and trusted the process. To anyone struggling, trust yourself. Circumstances don't matter. You are more powerful than you know, and everything you desire is already on its way.
Story 4. Six-figure job offer at 24 years old. Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. I live in sunny California, and I've been a silent observer on this forum for a few years. I used to read all your incredible stories, always wondering if one day I'd have one of my own to share. Well, today is that day. I recently experienced a major manifestation success, and I just have to share it with you. I hope it inspires you as much as other stories inspired me when I needed it most. Let me start by taking you back a couple of years. I had just graduated college in mid-2021, feeling equal parts excited and nervous about what lay ahead. Like a lot of recent graduates, I was thrust into the daunting world of job hunting. You know how it is, endless applications, countless rejections, and the overwhelming uncertainty about whether you're even on the right path. Despite all that, I told myself this time would be different. I was determined to approach my job search with a sense of trust. I wasn't going to let fear or doubt control me. Instead, I decided to lean into something I'd been dabbling in for a while: manifestation. I'd been reading Neville Goddard's teachings for about 2 years, and while I wasn't always consistent with my practice, his concepts resonated deeply with me. Back then, I made a conscious decision to apply only to roles I was genuinely interested in. I wasn't going to settle for just any job. One day, I came across a posting for a tech company that immediately caught my attention. They had a product I believed in, they were experiencing rapid growth, and to top it all off, they were environmentally friendly. It felt like a perfect match. After submitting my application, I did something that felt almost counterintuitive. I let go completely. I didn't obsess over whether I'd get the job or not. Instead, I went on with my life and focused on doing things that brought me joy. My days were filled with gaming with my buddies, watching anime, working out, and spending time with my family. It might sound simple, but these activities kept me grounded and genuinely happy. The only manifestation practice I kept up with was affirmations. I'd casually affirm to myself, I am working at, and the company name. If you're familiar with Neville Goddard's work, you know how powerful the phrase, I am, can be. I did this throughout the day. It's like planting a seed in the subconscious mind, and I made it a point to repeat this affirmation whenever it crossed my mind. Here's the thing, I didn't try to force belief. I didn't overthink it or analyze whether it was working. I simply trusted that the best outcome was already on its way to me. And you know what? It worked. A few weeks later, I got an email from the company inviting me to interview. I went through 3 rounds, and to my amazement, I landed the job. It was a 6-month contract role, paying $31 an hour. Now, in California, that's enough to get by, but not exactly enough to thrive on your own. Still, I was thrilled. I had landed a role at a company I admired, and that in itself felt like a huge win. But here's where the story gets interesting. After starting the job, I decided to set my sights on something bigger. I wanted a 6-figure salary. At first, it felt like a stretch, especially given my position wasn't technical, but I didn't let that stop me. Every day, I affirmed to myself, I am making 6 figures. I didn't obsess over the details. I didn't worry about how it would happen. I just made affirming a natural part of my day. Whether I was falling asleep, checking my bank account, or going about my daily routine, I'd repeat the affirmation in my mind. At the same time, I continued focusing on the things that brought me joy. I'd come home from work, have dinner with my family, watch The Mandalorian or the Book of Boba Fett, and then dive into a few hours of PC gaming with my friends. I can't emphasize this enough. Doing what you love and keeping your vibrations high is such an essential part of the process. Fast forward to about 4 months into my contract. One day, my boss scheduled a one-on-one meeting with me. At first, I wasn't sure what to expect, but I walked in with an open mind. During the meeting, she told me something that left me speechless. She said, "Everyone here loves working with you. We want to end your contract early and bring you on as a permanent hire. Then came the big moment. She asked me what salary I was expecting. I paused for a moment, caught off guard, and told her I wasn't sure. I wanted to be fair, but I didn't want to undersell myself either. That's when she smiled and said, "How does $100,000 sound?" I could hardly believe what I was hearing. My role isn't even a technical position, and it's rare for someone in my title to make that kind of money. Yet here I was being offered exactly what I had been affirming for months. It felt surreal, but at the same time, it felt natural, like it was always meant to happen. As I'm recording this, I just got an email from HR confirming that my paperwork is moving forward. I'm officially making six figures, and it feels incredible. Looking back, I've realized that all my manifestations have had one thing in common. They've felt natural. None of them felt forced or out of reach. They all unfolded in a way that made me think this would have happened anyway. But deep down, I know that's just the power of the law of assumption at work. If there's one thing I've learned from this journey, it's the importance of trust and detachment. I didn't stress over the details or try to control the outcome. Instead, I focused on affirming what I wanted, doing the things I loved, and trusting that everything would align perfectly, and it did. So, to anyone out there feeling stuck or doubting whether manifestation works, let this be your reminder. It absolutely does. Your thoughts are incredibly powerful, and the universe is always working in your favor. Just keep affirming, stay consistent, and find joy in the process. Everything will work out in the best possible way for you, even if it doesn't seem like it right now. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it inspires you to believe in your own power and take that leap of faith. Trust me, you've got this.
Story 5. This success left me speechless. I had been unemployed for a while, not out of necessity, but because I wanted to find something meaningful, something that aligned with my degree and career goals. Stability was important to me, but so was the sense of fulfillment that comes from doing work you care about. It wasn't an urgent need, but it was a deep desire to move forward with purpose. I had been familiar with Neville Goddard's teachings for some time, and I decided to apply what I had learned. I chose to live in the end, embodying the belief that the job I wanted was already mine. One of the most important lessons I had taken from Neville's work was that attachment to results only creates resistance. So I consciously detached from worrying about how or when it would happen. Instead, I chose to live as though it already had. In practical terms, this meant aligning my thoughts, words, and actions with the reality I wanted to create. I embodied the mentality of someone who had a stable income. I treated myself to little things here and there, never overly limiting my spending. I refused to speak or act like someone struggling financially. When I talked to my best friend about my situation, I would frame it as if the job was already secured. When applying for jobs, I stayed focused and present, but I didn't let the process consume me. I trusted that my effort was enough and that the perfect opportunity was already making its way to me. I didn't hope, chase, or cling to the outcome. Instead, I trusted that it was already done. Less than 2 months after adopting this mindset, I received an email about a screening call for a job I had applied for. The role felt perfect, and I was genuinely excited about the opportunity. During the call, the HR representative and I discussed the role, and we even agreed on a specific salary figure. She explained that there would be an online assessment followed by 2 interviews. The next day, I completed the assessment, even though I wasn't entirely confident in my answers. I had to look up most of them and felt unsure about how I had done. But I didn't let that discourage me. I reminded myself that the assessment was just a formality and didn't actually matter. I trusted that the job was mine, regardless of how well I had done. 5 days later, I received an email inviting me to a formal interview. The excitement was real, though so was the nervousness. Interviews have always been something I dreaded. Despite this, I reminded myself that I already had the job. Just for fun, I would imagine telling my best friend that I had gotten it, playing the scene over in my mind as if it had already happened. The night before the interview, doubt began to creep in. Thoughts like, what if I can't answer their questions, and what if I mess this up, started to whisper in my mind. I decided that this would not be my story. Instead, I practiced SATs, a technique where I visualized the outcome I wanted as I drifted off to sleep. In my visualization, the interview went so well that not only did I get the job, but I was also offered a salary higher than what the HR representative and I had discussed. I pictured a specific number on the offer letter, telling myself that if this number came to fruition, it would be undeniable proof of my manifestation. The interview itself went okay, not perfect, but okay. There were a few moments where I struggled with questions or didn't know how to respond, but I refused to let that shake my confidence. I reminded myself that the outcome was already decided. The job was mine. A week later, I received another email inviting me to a second interview. Once again, I told myself that the job was already mine. This interview went much better than the first. I felt more confident and at ease. At the end of the conversation, the interviewer asked about my salary expectations. I gave a range, with the lower end being the figure I had originally discussed with HR and the upper end being $5,000 more. To my surprise, the interviewer immediately agreed to the higher number. He even told me that he would be recommending me for the role. As I drove home, I realized I had manifested not only the job but also the higher salary. While it wasn't the exact number I had envisioned during SATs, it was still more than I had initially agreed upon, and that felt incredible. The entire process happened so quickly, and it strengthened my belief in myself and my ability to shape my reality. It was a powerful reminder that manifestation is not about luck or coincidence. It's about aligning with your desires and trusting in the process. Reflecting on this journey, I realized how much I had learned. Neville's teachings had shown me that we are capable of achieving extraordinary things when we align our thoughts and actions with our desires. But it's not just about affirming or visualizing. It's about embodying the belief that what you want is already yours. Throughout this journey, I focused on maintaining a positive mental diet. I paid close attention to the words I used and the thoughts I entertained. I avoided speaking or thinking in a way that contradicted the reality I was creating. I also made it a point to celebrate small wins and stay grateful for the progress I was making, even when it wasn't immediately visible. One of the biggest takeaways from this experience was the importance of detachment. When I stopped obsessing over how or when the job would come, things started to flow effortlessly. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you trust so deeply in the outcome that you don't feel the need to control every detail. To anyone out there feeling stuck or doubting themselves, I want you to know that you have more power than you realize. The journey may feel challenging at first, and the learning curve can be steep, but don't let that discourage you. With practice, it becomes easier, and soon you'll look back and marvel at how everything fell into place. You are capable of so much more than you think. Keep trusting, keep affirming, and know that everything you want is already making its way to you.
Story 6. Manifest a perfect job in 2 weeks after months of rejection. This is going to be a long story, but I hope you find it as inspiring as it felt to live through it. I was a freshly graduated university student, just starting my job search. My resume was filled with what I call menial work experience, jobs that didn't seem to carry much weight for the career I wanted. My city was packed with hundreds of graduates just like me, all competing for the same positions, but most of them had impressive internships and corporate experience to back them up. I couldn't help but feel at a disadvantage. By May, I had started obsessively applying for graduate jobs. I'd pour hours into every application, tweaking my resume, writing cover letters, and trying to position myself as the ideal candidate. But as the months rolled by, rejection after rejection started piling up. By August, I had nothing to show for my efforts except for one failed interview. The disappointment was overwhelming. I felt stuck, like no matter how much effort I put in, it wasn't enough. That's when I decided to try something different. I turned to the law of assumption and Neville Goddard's teachings, something I had dabbled in before but never fully committed to. At that point, I was willing to try anything. The first thing I decided was that I needed the hiring process to be easy. I was done with long, tedious applications and nerve-wracking interviews. I wanted a job that didn't make me feel like I had to fight for it. I set my intention, a short-term government job that would help me build my resume and save enough money to move to a new city. I began consciously manifesting in mid-August. My method was simple but powerful. Each night, as I began to feel sleepy, I would repeat the affirmation, I have the perfect job. I didn't visualize anything because that often took me out of the relaxed, sleepy state. Instead, I just focused on the words and the feeling that my desire had already manifested. During the day, I still applied for jobs, but I stopped obsessing over them. I would look at job listings only when I felt inspired. I let go of the frantic energy that had driven my earlier search. I told myself that the perfect job would come to me in the easiest way possible. At the same time, I faced resistance from my family. They often reminded me how competitive the job market was and shared stories of how my siblings had to work incredibly hard to land similar positions. Despite their concerns, I stayed focused on my belief. I trusted that the right job would not only find me, but would be handed to me without unnecessary struggle. Within a week of beginning this practice, I came across a job posting for a paid internship in a government department. It was exactly the kind of opportunity one had been looking for. The position was designed for graduates and offered a 12-week contract starting in November. While it wasn't perfect, waiting several months to start in the short-term nature of the role gave me pause. I told myself it was still worth pursuing. I started living in the end, imagining how excited I would be to start this job. Then came the rejection letter. For a moment, I felt disheartened all over again. It was like all the progress I'd made toward trusting the process had crumbled. But instead of letting the rejection define me, I chose to reframe it. I told myself that this was a blessing in disguise, a necessary step on the bridge leading me to something even better. This shift in mindset was transformative. By the end of the day, my inner state had completely changed. I went from feeling defeated to genuinely excited, believing that an even better opportunity was just around the corner. And I was right. Exactly 1 week later, I found another job posting. This time, it was a 6-month government role that would start in just 2 weeks. It felt like everything I had been asking for, but better. The hiring process was the easiest I had ever encountered. This department was in desperate need of workers and didn't have time for the usual lengthy application process. Instead of filling out an extensive form or enduring a nerve-wracking interview, all I had to do was complete a straightforward online game. The results of this game determined whether I would be hired. A week and a half later, I received the offer. Looking back, it's fascinating to think that this job had been posted for months, yet I hadn't come across it until I began consciously manifesting. Despite spending so much time searching for opportunities like this one since May, it somehow eluded me until I shifted my mindset and trusted the process. Now, I've been working in this role for nearly 3 weeks, and it has met all my expectations. The job has been everything I needed, a perfect stepping stone to build my resume and save money for my next chapter. If you had told me a few months ago that I'd land a government job with such ease, I wouldn't have believed it. But this experience has proven to me that faith and imagination are all you need. The key is to believe, even when circumstances seem impossible. This journey has strengthened my belief in the power of my thoughts and the importance of trusting the process. To anyone feeling stuck or unsure, remember that you are capable of so much more than you realize. The learning curve can feel steep, but once it clicks, everything begins to flow effortlessly. Don't give up. Trust in yourself. Stay consistent and watch how the universe aligns everything perfectly for you.
Story 7. Shocking Manifestation. Got the job without applying. Hi all. I'm so excited to share my story with you. I have to warn you, it's a bit long because there's no way I can explain everything without diving into the details. Thank you in advance to everyone who sticks around to read it. I discovered Neville Goddard's teachings near the end of 2018, and they immediately resonated with me. I started applying his principles to 2 major desires in my life. One of them was about my job. I was completely unhappy with my current role and longed for something new. I wanted a job where I'd be genuinely happy, paid well, and excited to wake up in the morning. Using Neville's techniques, I created a specific scene to visualize. In this scene, I was sitting at a bar with my close friend. I imagined every detail vividly. Her, "So, how's the new job?" Me, gulping down my drink quickly. "Girl, I love it." I never thought I'd say this, but I actually love my job. I felt the coldness of the glass against my hand as I put it down, my knees brushing against the bar stool as my heels lightly tapped the stool legs. Her, smiling, wide-eyed, wow. I knew her mannerisms so well that I could even see her expression perfectly in my mind. I visualized this scene daily, sometimes adding more specific details about the job I wanted, the flexibility, the generous pay, and my wonderful, fun boss. To reinforce this, I also repeated an affirmation every morning and night. I am working at my new job that I love in 2019, making over $X a year. I stayed consistent with this routine for 6 months. Here's how everything unfolded. At one point, I decided to stop applying for jobs because the process was draining me emotionally. Seeing either no suitable postings or getting no responses was ruining my mood. I gave myself permission to take a break, only browsing job listings occasionally when I felt like it. One day, while walking down the hallway at my current job, a coworker asked me if I was coming to her goodbye dinner. Now, let me tell you, I'm not someone who socializes much. It's a running joke with my friends that I have no problem saying no to plans. But for some reason in that moment, I felt so put on the spot that I blurted out, "Yes." As soon as I said it, I was mad at myself. I'd had a long day and just wanted to go home. But I kept my word and went to the dinner. To my surprise, I ended up having a great time. While I was at the dinner, an old coworker named John showed up. John had left the company about a year earlier. Now, here's the thing. I never worked directly with John, and we weren't close at all. We'd only talked a handful of times when he was still at the office. I happened to be sitting next to 2 coworkers who had assisted John when he worked there. They were excited to see him, so I even offered to switch seats so they could sit next to him. They declined, so I stayed put and ended up catching up with John. We chatted about work and life, but I didn't mention that I was unhappy in my job or that I was looking for a new one. Here's the funny part. John didn't like his drink, so I took a couple of sips, thinking I'd try it. Then, because I felt awkward about it, I decided to buy the drink for him. He wasn't even there when I paid, so I was half annoyed at myself for doing it. It was such a random interaction, and I didn't think much of it afterward. A couple of weeks later, another coworker approached me and said, "You know John? He told me to give you his email and said you should reach out to him." I thought it was strange, but decided to email him anyway. He replied and asked if I'd be interested in working at his company. Fast forward through 2 interviews, and today I was offered the job. The pay is exactly the amount I had affirmed in my visualization, and on top of that, I get to work from home 1 day a week. The way this all came together still feels surreal to me. John could have referred either of the 2 assistants who worked closely with him and were at the dinner, but instead, he chose me. And just to clarify, John likes men, so there's no romantic angle or hidden agenda here. It was pure manifestation at work. I'm already planning to celebrate with my friend at a bar, just like in the scene I had been visualizing for months. If you're reading this and wondering if Neville's teachings really work, let me tell you they do. It's not just about thinking positively. It's about fully embodying the feeling of your desire already being fulfilled. When you align with that feeling, the universe has no choice but to reflect it back to you. Thank you for reading my story. I hope it inspires you to trust the process, stay consistent, and believe that what you desire is already on its way to you.
Story 8. Got dream job through revision after being rejected initially. I was suddenly out of a job and found myself in a situation I never expected. 4 months. I had poured my time and energy into finding a new role, but after 3 long months of interviewing and waiting, I hadn't managed to secure anything in my field, technology. Every rejection felt like a blow, chipping away at my confidence and self-worth. At first, I tried to push through the disappointment. I applied to every job I could find that remotely matched my skills and interests, but the responses were either no or silence. Eventually, I hit a wall. I couldn't do it anymore. The constant waiting and rejection had drained me, and I completely stopped applying. I didn't know what to do next, so I decided to lean on something I had always been curious about but hadn't fully embraced: Neville Goddard's teachings. I had heard about techniques like SATs, which is state akin to sleep and revision, and I figured I had nothing to lose. At first, I tried SATs, but for some reason it didn't resonate with me. I couldn't quite get into the right state of mind. However, revision felt different. It clicked. I started using revision to rewrite my experiences, particularly the painful ones. Every night, I would sit quietly and mentally revisit the rejection emails I had received. Instead of seeing the familiar "we regret to inform you," I imagined opening emails that began with, "Congratulations. We are thrilled to offer you the position." I pictured myself feeling relieved, overjoyed, and validated. I focused on that feeling of success until it became real to me. With time, it felt like the pain of those rejections began to fade, replaced by a quiet sense of confidence that something better was on the horizon. One day, out of nowhere, I received an email from a recruiter. They asked if I would be interested in a position at my dream company. My heart skipped a beat. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Without hesitation, I responded to the email, excited but cautious. Around the same time, another recruiter reached out with a promising opportunity at a different company, so I decided to apply for that as well. For the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. I allowed myself to imagine what it would be like to work at these companies, how it would feel to step into a role that matched my skills and aspirations. I even started casually telling myself, "This is already mine," whenever doubt tried to creep in. But as the days turned into weeks, I heard nothing back. By the end of the month, after nearly 2 weeks of waiting, the silence became deafening. Then, last Friday, the recruiter from my dream company finally reached out, but it wasn't the news I had hoped for. I was rejected. Hearing those words hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt the disappointment all over again. It was like I had been dragged back to square one. I was angry, frustrated, and incredibly discouraged. But deep down, I knew I couldn't stay in that headspace. I needed to pull myself out of it. To help myself recover, I started writing in a gratitude journal. I wrote down everything I could think of to be thankful for, the small wins, the lessons I had learned, and even the opportunities one believed were still on their way. At night, I turned back to revision. This time, I rewrote the recruiter's rejection email into a hiring email. I didn't do this with the intention of changing the external reality. I just wanted to feel better and regain my sense of peace. I imagined reading, "We are excited to offer you the position," and let that feeling of relief and gratitude wash over me. Then something incredible happened. On Monday morning, I received an unexpected call from the same recruiter at my dream company. He told me the company had reached out to him again with an update. Apparently, they had made a mistake. Instead of rejecting another candidate, they had accidentally sent the rejection to me. I was stunned. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. The recruiter explained that while I wasn't officially hired yet, I was still in the running. The company wanted to interview one more candidate before making their final decision, which could take a week or 2. He asked if I had any other interviews lined up, and I mentioned the other opportunity one was waiting on. He requested that I keep him updated if I received another offer, as it might help expedite their decision. Knowing I was still being considered reignited my hope. I decided to stay calm and focused, leaning on another of Neville's techniques, the "I remember when" method. Whenever I felt anxious, I would tell myself, "I remember when I didn't have the job, but now I am so happy and grateful to be working at my dream company name." This simple affirmation helped me feel like the outcome I wanted was already mine, easing my nerves and keeping me grounded. Then, just 2 hours later, my phone rang again. It was the same recruiter, and this time his voice sounded different, excited, almost giddy. He told me I had been hired by my dream company. I couldn't believe it. He admitted that even he was shocked by how everything had unfolded. He said, "I can't believe I'm having this conversation with you today." Hearing those words made the moment feel even more surreal. As I sit here reflecting on this journey, I'm still in awe of how everything came together. If you had told me a few months ago that I'd be working at my dream company after such a rocky start, I wouldn't have believed you. But this experience has taught me the power of persistence, imagination, and faith. To anyone reading this, I want you to know that no matter how impossible things may seem, you have the power to change your reality. Your thoughts, beliefs, and emotions are more powerful than you realize. Trust the process, stay consistent, and never lose hope. If I can do it, so can you.